Welcome back, podcast fans. I'm your host, Annette Hines, and this is Parenting Impossible, the Special Needs Survival Podcast. And I am coming to you right in the middle of a hurricane. I spend part of my time in North Carolina, where my daughter is, and the rest of my time, obviously, in Massachusetts. But in North Carolina right now, we are in the middle of a hurricane as I am recording this podcast. So hopefully I will not lose electricity or internet, and I'll be able to finish this podcast episode for you. This is an important podcast that I do some version of every year, and it's all about getting ready for back to school. Some of you may say, hey, I don't have anybody going back to school, but it is really appropriate for anyone planning their busy time. Back to school time is synonymous with many other, programs starting up for adults with disabilities and other types of activities and engagement after the summer. So I hope that everybody will get something out of this. So I really started developing this back to school checklist that I have for folks who have a medically fragile child. And that really expanded into any child with a disability heading back to school after summer. And then I did another version of this checklist after COVID and kids were returning to school, and I called it Life After Lockdown. And it's really been interesting to watch the evolution of this return to school checklist. But there are things across the board that remain the same on this checklist, no matter what event you're talking about. So first and foremost, it's really important to check your child's IEP. And if you are adulting in the service world, then check your ISP, your individualized service plan, for supports. Many people, again, will travel during the summer. They'll take downtime. They'll spend time with family. They may not necessarily be in their program all summer long. So it's a really good check-in time for anyone, whether a child or an adult with disabilities. So making sure that you have reviewed the IEP or the ISP, that you really understand whether the person is making progress on their goals. What are those goals? And what are the action steps? Are they making progress towards them? What do you think needs to be changed or updated regarding this IEP or ISP? And start jotting down some notes as you're leaning in to the fall and everybody's busy season. More importantly, does your child have an individualized healthcare plan? And if so, do you know what's on it? Has anything changed there? Really important to just get the lay of the land. Does it have the most up-to-date treatment information, medication list, and doctors that your child or your adult sees? And if you don't have an IHP, do you need one? Has something changed? If your child is changing schools or classrooms, will the new classroom or school need to be adapted, or the schedule need to be adapted? So, for example, if you're moving from elementary school to middle school, or you're moving from a self-contained classroom to an integrated one, these are examples of things that might change on an IHP. So, did you collect any new information over the summer? Because many families will use this time to get evaluations or see specialists, or maybe have elective medical procedures done, get some testing done. And it is difficult sometimes for parents, especially, to feel comfortable sharing information with their school district. And I completely get that. I really do. I had a contentious relationship most of the time with my school district, not necessarily with the school, not necessarily with the classroom teacher, the principal, the administration. It's really more about the people who are the gatekeepers, the holders of the budget, if you will. Did you collect any new diagnoses? Have there been any new reports or evaluations to share? How are you feeling about sharing that information? If you don't feel good about it, check in with yourself. Why is that? What is holding me back from trusting this team? And, is that something that really needs to be addressed right now? If you have any documentation, videos are great, by the way. Everybody takes pictures and videos these days, so easy on your phone. Sometimes it's hard to put into words what progress your child has made or what new thing they're doing. Oh, they have a new tick. I want you to see what it looks like. Or you know, they can now tie their shoes, and this is how you do it, hand over hand. Those videos can sometimes be a lot faster than trying to explain or show in person. And if your child or your adult went to any kind of a different program, a summer program, an internship, new job, um, summer camp, or maybe you traveled with them and had new experiences that way. Maybe you want to share those teacher notes, those progress notes, those camp notes, any documentation or any descriptions about what your child was able to do, or your adult, what they accomplished, things that maybe didn't go so well. Did they have any healthcare difficulties this summer? Did anything change with that? I know I keep mentioning that, but it is so important. And is there anything that went so great this summer that you really want to try to integrate it into the educational setting or the adult support setting? For example, let's say that they did have a great job experience or a great task responsibility experience. And so, for example, one year, my Elizabeth, over the summer, was able to do a little bit of work in the floral, um, horticultural program, I guess it was called, at Perkins School for the Blind, which they don't have anymore, I heard. I'm so sad about that. So she was delivering floral arrangements. And how cool was that? We learned something about her. And I wanted to integrate that knowledge of how she managed that task and what she enjoyed about it. I wanted to integrate that information into her plan for the school year. So that's just one example. If they have had any kind of a breakthrough in social anxiety or in other relationships, etc., that would be another great thing to add. So I love being able to come to a new school year with a lot of positives and not start out that school year with the idea that this is not going to go well. I'm dreading it. My child's dreading it. And, I'm going to get right into fight or flight mode with this new team. You want to keep the school staff informed. And that means that you may want to meet with the teacher, school nurse, any other appropriate personnel as early as you can to discuss all of the information that we just talked about. The more comfortable that they are with your child or your adult, then the less conflict you're likely to have throughout the year. Getting in to meet with them, not that first week, because of course they're going to be crazed with getting everybody integrated into their school year and their responsibilities and their schedules and all of that. But sometime shortly after that, second week, third week, pretty early on in the school year, just have that 15-minute call or sit down, introduce yourself, and thank them for what they're doing, and just give them a little snapshot of your child. Let them know that the door is open, that you want to work collaboratively, and set up that communication right at the beginning. And it's difficult sometimes for parents or caregivers to feel comfortable and confident sharing information with their school district, with their programs, their adult service programs. And that's natural, particularly given the conflict that can arise with care providers and school districts. Smaller and less formal meetings could be much more comfortable and can achieve your goals in a better way, rather than calling that big meeting where everybody's present and there's 15 people around the table. These mini meetings with, an agenda that has like one agenda item on it can really be perfect. It won't overload you or them. And also, you just have a higher chance of accomplishing the goal that you're setting if you do that. Do you even feel comfortable sending your person back to this program or your child back to this school program? You're entitled to understand and know what the classroom and school protocols will be, so that you can feel confident that your child is safe. If there's any healthcare difficulties that are concerning you, and if you're worried about the staffing, then, this is the time to have that conversation about I'm just not comfortable. I'm just not confident in the team, but not just leave it at the negative, explain, and also think through some ideas that you might have to bridge that gap and help get the program ready for your child. So if your child is requiring one-to-one staffing, then you want to take a look at that staff as well. So who is available? How is that going to be handled? Is it all in a self-contained classroom? Are you staffing with a one-to-one aide or a one-to-one nurse? What's the ratio of staffing in the classroom, in the pullouts and the specials? Even if you've always had this one-to-one staffing for your child, there may be new protocols that you have to put in place. It may not be the same old this year. You may be entertaining a new staff person. You may now need a staff person when you've never had one before, or your one-to-one is going away because your child is accomplishing their goals. And now you need to think about a different setting and a different delivery of services and supports in that classroom. You really want to think about who's employing this staff person. Are they getting paid by the school district? Are they a school district employee? Are they getting paid by Medicaid, MassHealth? Are they your employee in that case? Do they belong to a nursing agency, a staffing agency, what have you? Understanding these complex contracting issues can help you navigate these waters and not overstep, not expect oversight where it's not appropriate to expect it. You want to understand the chain of command and how this all fits. It's a bunch of puzzle pieces that all kind of fit together for your child's or your adult's school year or service year. Other common things that come up, how accessible is the nurse in the building? What is he or she allowed to do? Can they do G-tube feedings? Can they do blood sugar checks? Can they issue medications? What happens during critical issues like seizures? Can they administer Diastat? Can they use the EpiPen? Where are all these things stored? Do you have emergency protocols updated and in place for the new location, the new staffing, that maybe, new classroom, new building, new child with different needs. So all of that just needs to be mapped out, and you want to make sure that you are ready for that. And lastly, I really want to talk about communication. Remember, I said it's great to have that mini meeting in the beginning to introduce yourself. It's important that you think about for yourself, how do you like to share information throughout the year? What's your communication style? Do you prefer to send a book back and forth? Do you want to have mini phone calls at periodic episodes? Do you want them to, just fill in a little checklist or a little, circle these things sheet? Um, it's really important that you know your own style so that you can discuss with them what the expectations are going to be. And everybody can be realistic and honest about what expectations they can meet for on both sides of this communication divide. Some schools are not going to be able to share a notebook back and forth because it's just too much to ask that someone writes in a notebook every day. But maybe they can send an email once a week with a couple of lines. So it's really important to talk about that communication piece and sharing information and how that's going to happen. Most of the time with adult service programs, I haven't seen a lot of communication going back and forth. And I think it really requires diligence on your part as well as the service provider's part to make sure that that happens regularly and routinely and follows a certain script. Tour the school or the program if you can, and check to see if there are any obstacles for your child or your loved one. For example, if there are mobility issues, is there an elevator? Are the rooms spaced well for him or her? Do they need a refrigerator available to them for certain medications or specialty foods? And again, what are those emergency procedures for fire, lockdowns, things that you don't want to think about, but do happen from time to time? Really important to understand those protocols and to make sure that someone is training your child on what those protocols are. And lastly, do you feel like you need to call a formal team meeting either before your child starts the program or early on in the program, so that you can really have a more formal discussion around these issues and topics as you're thinking through what you need to get done the next year and what you need people to know? Even though everyone is very busy at the beginning of the year and inundated with paperwork, don't be intimidated. Advocate for your child or for your loved one. Make sure that whatever you need to get done, you get done. There are awesome ways to get all of this accomplished in a friendly and collaborative manner. Some situations do require formality and they need to be on the record, and that's certainly true with certain healthcare issues, or if you have worries about accessibility, access, ADA, etc. And if you need help at a meeting, feel free to bring a friend to the meetings. Ask your medical staff, your doctor, your nurse practitioner, your therapist to take part in the meeting. Sometimes that's an extra cost, but it may just help you get the information across that you need to get across. Hire an advocate or an attorney if you really feel stuck and you need that extra help and that extra push to be heard on some of the important issues for your child or your loved one. If you are not comfortable with how things are set up for your child, you have options. Your child is entitled to a free and appropriate education under IDEA. And that includes homeschooling and distance learning and access to medical care during the school day and so many more ancillary services. Just be thoughtful about the long-term value of developing relationships with providers, teachers, physicians, administrators, caseworkers, and others. And I want you to really try to nurture those relationships. People do not go into this field and say to themselves, wow, these families are a pain, and this disabled person, I just don't understand what they need. They go in to help. They go in to provide care and services. This is a field that they loved, if not now, at least at one time. And you can wake that back up in them. It's important to always approach collaboratively at first. And there are times when you are going to get stuck and you're going to have to make some decisions about whether to push or let things go. It's always better if plans are a team decision rather than a reluctant response to your demands. And being patient, thoughtful, and encouraging in those relationships is a challenge, but it's critically important. I myself had many spots where I just, thought to myself, this is never going to work. I don't understand these people. I don't understand why they are always saying no to me. I don't know why they don't get Elizabeth. I don't know why they don't get me. And frankly, I had a right to feel that way. There was a lot of things going wrong. And, I had a situation where my SPED director many, many, many years ago said to me that my daughter Elizabeth was never going to be more than a class pet. Horrific, right? Nobody wants to hear that, especially from the people who are charged with caring for your child, educating your child, or your adult person that you care for. This is not what you want to see and hear from them. It just doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel not only like they're going to get the education that they need, but that they're going to get the support in a crisis. So I know from experience how hard this can be, but I also can promise you that the team is out there that wants to support your child or your adult. The team is out there. You need to find them, and you can find gems in every program. You really can. So that is my annual advice about getting back into a program, into school, and all the things that you should be thinking about to prepare. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a great time. I can hear the thunder, lightning, and the rain pouring down on us out there. I hope none of that sound continues through this podcast. Stay safe, stay warm, stay dry. Bye now.